What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel. Today, I'm going to be giving you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for UFC Fight Night Tuivasa versus Tybura. Last week, I went 10-4 in my picks. This week, I'm sweeping the entire damn card. I'm going to keep saying it until it happens, but until then, let's start out with the first fight of the night, which is Charalampos Grigoriou versus Anheliger in this matchup. I was thinking Charalampos Grigoriou was going to be my pick because he has good knockout power. He's a national kickboxing champion in some promotion that I'm not really too familiar with. When it comes down to it, he has some decent striking. I don't really love his ability off the back foot. And although I think he has very good takedown defense, I'm going to be picking Anheliger here because I think he's very underrated. And I know he hasn't fought good levels of competition. He's coming off a loss against Jose Johnson, and he fought someone recently before that. It'll come to me. I'll probably mention it throughout here. But I was rewatching a lot of Anheliger tape, and he's got good cardio, and he's extremely, extremely unorthodox. I know Charalampos Grigoriou can just go out there and spark him in round one, spark him in round two, and just beat him on the feet, and that low kick probably will be money for him. But I did think that Anheliger checked a couple of the low kicks from Jesse Strader pretty well. He dealt with the kicks from Jesse Strader pretty well. Although he is open to getting kicked, I think Charalampos Grigoriou doesn't really throw that kick too often unless it is to the legs, and I still do think that he doesn't target it as much as I would want him to. I know Charalampos is a jack dude with a lot of power, and he trains with Ray Longo and Matt Serra, and that's a very good gym, and I do think that they have implemented some very good grappling within him. And I do think that Anheliger's takedown defense really isn't that good, but he does have some good scrambles. He does have good cardio, and Charalampos Grigoriou is someone that I have seen fade on the regional scene. And if you look at his regional career, and you look at his record, or the records of the opponents that he was facing, they were really low-level competition. I'll actually pull it up for you here in just one moment. But I remember watching him take this guy that was 6-5 to the 5th round, and it was just a slop fest for almost every single round there was. Sure, he was landing some big shots, but I'm not sure he's got that insane knockout one-punch power, although I know it's there. But I'm just saying, it's not like every single punch this guy lands is just going to put Anheliger out, who is just so unorthodox. I think a great way to compare his game to someone is Tim Elliott of the flyweight division, but obviously he's in the bantamweight division, and he is a Canadian man, and that's why I really don't want to pick him here, because Canadian men did me very dirty at UFC 297, but I am going to be picking Tim Elliott. I am going to be picking Anheliger by decision, because I think he's got the better cardio, and I think he can work in the takedowns later. As the fight goes later, Charalampos has looked extremely, extremely sloppy. I already think he's sloppy in the first place. He has a good blitz, like Dricus du Plessis, but even then, I think that the movement that Anheliger has is going to bring him a lot of problems. I'm telling you, just watch Anheliger fight, watch back some of his fights. He moves exactly like Tim Elliott, and I think it's a guy like that with weird movement that will work in the takedown threat with fairly high volume and the threat in the later rounds. I think he could potentially find a submission late if it does get to that point where Charalampos is gassing. We saw Charalampos on the regional scene take on C-Rod, Christian Rodriguez, who was fighting later on this card against Isaac Dulgarian. I'll get to that fight in just one moment, but we saw him gas out massively in round 3 and get TKO'd. In round 2, he was already slowing down. I think this guy's cardio is really bad, and I do think that Anheliger survives the first round. I trust him enough to do enough to win the second and the third rounds. I do think that Charalampos Grigoriou will drop off a cliff if Anheliger can't survive, and I have seen Anheliger take big shots from Anheliger. I want to say that's how you say his name, but he's durable. He's got a good chin, and I do think that Charalampos Grigoriou is just slow. I mean, at times, he does have a very quick blitz, and I don't want to call it quick. He swings his hooks extremely wide, and I do think that Anheliger's head movement will be good enough to avoid these long winging hooks, and I do think that maybe Anheliger can find takedowns early. If not, I can trust him to shoot takedowns and put Charalampos Grigoriou on the back foot at times, and off the back foot, Charalampos Grigoriou does have very bad counters. It's almost like he just charges up for his long, winded movements where he's going for that blitz of 3 to 4 punches, ending it off with a leg kick, and it looks good, but then after that, he just kind of chills out for a little bit. His opponent puts in some work, and I think as the fight goes on, Anheliger should be able to pressure him. This is his back up against the wall. If he loses this, he probably is cut, but I also don't like the fact that Charalampos Grigoriou is making his UFC debut. These Dana White's Contender Series guys have been guys that have been seen as a fade within the community at times, just because they start out, they're a little bit nervous, whatever it might be, and although he has a good coach, his regional scene record is horrible. That's what I wanted to bring up. Outside of Cameron Smotherman, he was 9-3. He beat him first round, very, very impressive, but Cameron Smotherman is not hittable, but he definitely is a guy that can get knocked down in the first round. He does get hit, and I do think if that fight goes later, it favors Cameron Smotherman. But outside of that, he beat a guy named Chris Dissono, a guy who's 6-5. Since then, he lost a fight after that and is now 6-7. He took him to the 5th round and finished him based off of leg kicks, and Chris Dissono is absolute dog shit. Outside of that, there's a guy named Joey Cristomo Jr., a guy who is now 2-7, and it took him another round. It took him 2 rounds to get him out of there. And sure, he had success, but Joey, I think, landed a takedown on him. I do think Charalampos has very good scrambles back up to the feet, and his takedown defense is very good. We saw this against Christian Rodriguez. But as the fight goes later, he might stuff the takedown and give up his back where Anheliger can find a submission. Anheliger's unorthodox, weird movement, switching stances will bring Charalampos problems. I think he's not going to have an easy time walking down Anheliger, and Anheliger will be there for the later rounds. And I just trust his cardio. I don't trust Charalampos Grigoriou's cardio just yet, and I don't think he's going to do enough or hurt Anheliger enough to knock him out early. And it is very possible, and I could look extremely stupid, but I got a strong feeling. I just can't tell you enough that I don't trust Charalampos in round 3, and Anheliger will probably bring him more adversity than anyone in his career has ever done. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Mitch Ramirez versus Thiago Moises. I didn't realize this fight was that early on the card, but Thiago Moises is going to be the pick. I'll say round 2 submission. He should be the better striker. Mitch Ramirez does have some good power, but he did get knocked out recently by Carlos Prates. That was at the welterweight division, but now he's coming down to the lightweight division on short notice. So that's never a great sign. He's going to be cutting a lot of weight. I never thought he had the greatest cardio in the beginning. He is very hittable. Thiago Moises is a fairly technical striker. He gave Islam Makhachev some problems. Did lose to Benoit Saint-Denis, who recently just lost last weekend to Dustin Poirier, as you probably all know. But anyways, Thiago Moises, he does get hit at times, and there is a world where he can get sparked by Mitch Ramirez, who does have some good power. However, I do think that Mitch Ramirez will get taken down and eventually submitted by Thiago Moises. Thiago Moises obviously is a very high-level jiu-jitsu practitioner, and he's got pretty solid cardio. So I'm going to say a round 2 submission. He gets down Ramirez. He gets down Mitch Ramirez. That's an easy name to say, but I'm fucking it up right now somehow. But I think he'll get him down, and he'll find a submission, and he is clearly the better jiu-jitsu guy, and I think he's the better striker. The question is, can Mitch land a big shot, and could he potentially stuff the takedowns coming his way? I think he does have some sort of a wrestling background, if I remember correctly, but I do think that Thiago Moises is the better striker, more technical, should keep this at range, stay away from the power of Mitch Ramirez, you know what I'm saying, and take him down and find a submission in the first couple of rounds. Maybe round 3, sometimes Thiago is a little bit more controlled with the submission game. Doesn't really chase submissions that heavily at times, but sometimes he does as well. So I do think he'll get a rear naked choke round 2. Could be early, round 1. We'll see, but for now, I think Thiago Moises is the pick. Fairly confident. He's like minus 400. It's probably fair. Mitch Ramirez isn't really proven, and I don't think he is that good. He wings shots, but sometimes these wild guys can have success against some of the guys that don't have the greatest striking defense, and I don't think Thiago Moises has beautiful striking defense yet. He is good, and I think he's a pretty fairly high-level, lightweight outside of the rankings. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Cory McKenna versus Jaqueline Amorim. Jaqueline Amorim isn't the greatest striker, and she has a 10 reach advantage here, but I still think that Cory McKenna is the better striker. The place that Jaqueline Amorim has the advantage in, it's going to be on the ground. She's got the better jiu-jitsu, and if she can sweep Cory McKenna when Cory McKenna shoots a takedown, or if she can land a takedown of her own, she probably will win this fight. It's just, when I'm predicting fights, I don't like to predict fights that way. I don't think Jaqueline Amorim will beat Cory McKenna on the feet. I think Cory McKenna will be the better striker on the feet, and if she lands takedowns, I don't know why. I kind of just trust her to stay on top, although she could get swept. I could see her getting back up to the feet. I just think she'll keep this fight on the feet. Will be able to stuff the takedowns coming her way. And although Jaqueline Amorim might pull guard, look for a couple of sweeps, I just don't want to predict that style anymore. I'm fucking fading it. I'm doing it. But yeah, Cory McKenna, probably a stronger girl. Jaqueline Amorim, very skinny, not super strong. Cory McKenna should just win this one on the feet, and if she does get taken down, she probably will get submitted. Not submitted, but she probably will get sweeped, put in bad positions, and lose by decision. But I do think that Cory McKenna will be smart enough to keep this one on the feet. Despite the massive reach disadvantage, if she shoots takedown, she probably will get swept and then put in a bad position, potentially submitted. But for some reason, I just feel like Cory McKenna is going to beat the jiu-jitsu practitioner with great submissions who hasn't won by submission in the UFC yet. Now she only has 2 fights within the UFC recently, so that's not fair to say. But I think Cory McKenna is fairly decent. She's young. She's improving. That's something that I want to bet on as well. I think she might find takedowns. If she does, like I said, she probably gets reversed and fucks it up, but I do think she'll keep this on the feet for the most part, win the striking exchanges, do the more damage on the feet, and if it does hit the ground, I don't see Jaqueline Amorim doing too much. I'm not going to rely on Jaqueline Amorim. I don't know if that's even how you say her name, Jaqueline Amorim, to find a submission or just work off of her back and find sweeps. I hate to predict that style, and that might be a bias against that style, but I think that Cory McKenna since she is the better striker and has some experience, obviously, from winning on Top Control. And Jaqueline lost to fucking Sam Hughes, so that's a bad look. Although some people thought it could have gone the other way, that's a very bad look. I like Cory McKenna. I like the youth. I think she's a better striker. I feel like I just repeated myself 5 times. So that is the sign that we should move on to the next fight of the card. Danny Silva versus Josh Culibao in this matchup. I wanted to go with Josh Culibao, but the heart, actually I didn't really want to. I was going to go with Josh Culibao, but the heart wanted to pick Danny Silva, and I was given a reason to this morning. I was watching the UFC weigh-ins. Danny Silva missed weight. That is a fucking lock now. I'm just kidding, but every single time I am thinking about picking a fighter, and then I don't pick them, but then they miss weight, they fucking win. So I'm going with Danny Silva here, and I think I can break down this fight pretty well. I was rewatching a lot of tape on this fight earlier this morning, yesterday as well. And Josh Culibao is the quicker fighter. He fights out of both stances, and the way he wins this fight is striking at range, ripping low kicks, ripping kicks. But even then, I just do think that when he gets pressured, he is not very good off the back foot. And although he can scrap and he can brawl, and he did pretty well against Sung Woo Choi, Sung Woo Choi has been proven to be the greatest fighter. And Josh Culibao really didn't look good against Lerone Murphy. And say what you want about Lerone Murphy being very good, I get that. But Meerschaert Bagdasaryan was also beating him at range as well. And I think that Danny Silva, being 3 pounds heavier, is not going to give a fuck. He's going to walk forward. He's got great cardio. He's got a great chin. And I know the fight with Angel Pacheco was extremely entertaining, but also concerning because he does get hit. And he kind of did let Angel Pacheco back into that fight when he probably should have had him out of there. I just kind of believe in him. I mean, he missed fucking weight. He's going to pressure forward on Josh Culibao. And Josh Culibao has never been the greatest guy keeping his opponents at range. So I'm taking this dog here. I think this is my second dog of the card. He's got great cardio. He's got decent power. I think he might overwhelm Josh Culibao in the later rounds. But what I like about Mr. Danny Silva, although some of his fights on the regional scene are a little bit questionable to me, and I think his hands definitely are a little bit slower here. I just think within the pocket, I trust him. And Josh Culibao does trade in the pocket. And when he does, I think he'll get clipped with big shots or he get ripped to the body. If I'm describing Danny Silva's style, he's got good boxing, but he rips to the body very, very well. And he mixes in some nice combinations to the body, rips up top to the head. I think he has some good leg kicks. He trades with Cub Swanson, who obviously has very good leg kicks of his own. But I saw him ripping some leg kicks early against Angel Pacheco, and that was something good. It was hurting Angel a little bit, but then as the fight progressed and it turned into a firefight, he kind of abandoned them. And I think it was more of just he forgot about it, and he almost finished Angel Pacheco so many times that he would rip to the body because he was having so much success for the body, and he forgot about the low kicks. I think he can rip low kicks here, and low kicks, I think, could be a weakness in the game of Josh Culibao. He was struggling with this against Lerone Murphy, Meerschaert Bagdasaryan, and I thought Meerschaert Bagdasaryan won round 1 and was on his way to winning round 2, potentially winning that fight until he slipped, had a weird exchange, and then got submitted in round 2 by Josh Culibao. I think the better grappler is Josh Culibao, but his takedowns aren't that good. Danny Silva is strong. He's 2 pounds overweight, so that's always a good sign when you're on the Danny Silva side. I think it might actually be 2.5 pounds, so that's fucking rough how that ended up working out, but that tells me he's going to be rehydrated. And some people seem to swear by that your takedown offense is massively improved if you miss weight. I see people saying, well, Shavkat Rakhmonov would have taken down Jeff Neal a majority of times, at least 5 times if Jeff Neal would have made weight. I still think that's kind of some bullshit. I think that's a little bit of cope. Sure, it might have helped a little bit. Jeff Neal might not have been as strong, but he still practices takedown defense. He still has those skills regardless of whether or not he cut an extra 2 pounds or not. You get what I'm saying? I don't think it's that big of a difference that some people make it out to be, but I think it might definitely help out Danny Silva, especially with his cardio later. And he has already fantastic cardio. He loves to rip to the body, and I think Josh Culibao has always been open to getting ripped to the body. Lerone Murphy dropped him with a body kick, actually. It was a very weird scenario. He dropped him with the body, and then he kind of sat down and looked like he just was butt scooching for a moment, but he actually was dropped by a body kick. And although it was a kick, and I think the kicks will be what brings Josh Culibao the most problems on the feet throughout his career, I just think that Danny Silva could slip in the inside of one of these Josh Culibao long straight punches, rip to the body, hurt Josh Culibao at a moment and kind of tee off on him. I just trust his pressure, and I do think that Josh Culibao is not as good off the back foot. Now, it could be completely stupid here because Josh Culibao is quick and he moves very well around the octagon, but I do like that performance from Danny Silva. I do like that he missed weight, and I do like that he has a good chin. He has a very good chin. We saw this against Angel Pacheco, and say what you want about Angel Pacheco and how he isn't that great of a fighter. They got into a dogfight, and Danny Silva outdogged one of the toughest people I've fucking seen. Angel Pacheco basically got KO'd with the liver shot and just recovered some fucking miraculous way and went on to have a fucking dogfight for the rest of the fight. Danny Silva's tough. I think he's going to work in some low kicks here. He trains with Cub Swanson. He was looking for them early against Angel Pacheco. I think his confidence is going to be through the roof after he heard a lot of people tooting his horn about that performance against Angel Pacheco. A lot of people already like this guy just because of that performance. If you haven't seen that fight, go back and rewatch it. One of the best fights in the Dana White's Contender Series ever. If not 100%, it is. Fucking insane fight. But I think he's going to be able to rip to the body. I think he's going to be able to pressure Josh Culibao, which will bring Culibao issues. Unless Josh Culibao can really get the kicks going, really just hinders his ability to track him down just with switching stances, working on the outside, his movement, which obviously can bring problems to Danny Silva, which does really concern me, makes me want to go with Danny Silva, but fucking hell, he missed weight. I was already considering him, and that makes me want to pick him. I broke down this fight for too long. Danny Silva, I'm going to say by decision, 29-28, potentially having a big moment in the later rounds, but I love his cardio. So let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Osbourne versus Jafel Filho. In this match, I'm going with Jafel Filho. I mean, Osbourne has been taken down a few times throughout his career. He just got submitted in the second round by Asu Almabayev, who just fought at UFC 299, beat CJ Vergara, but took him to a decision. So that tells you that maybe Osbourne's submission defense isn't that great. Jafel Filho almost submitted Muhammad Mokaev. We have seen Jafel Filho eat some big shots in the regional scene, recover, and find takedowns. I think his takedown entries aren't the worst in the world, and I don't love Osbourne's takedown offense. For that reason, I think Jafel Filho will get Osbourne down or in a weird scramble at some point in this fight, and I think he'll submit him in the first couple of rounds. I'll say round one, I'm going to feel a little bit ballsy here, but I think that he finds a submission here. I think that's his main way to win this fight, maybe by decision, but if stuffs the takedowns, which his takedown defense hasn't looked the worst throughout his career, I just kind of look at a guy like Jafel Filho, and I feel like if he misses a takedown at times, he can be the guy that scrambles over to the back, gets some hooks in, finds a rear naked choke that way, or forces into some bad positions. He is quick, fairly durable. Putting Muhammad Mokaev in those positions is very impressive. He arguably would have won that if Muhammad Mokaev wasn't that tough. So Jafel Filho, based on having better jiu-jitsu, based on being quick, explosive with his submission attempts, he's the worst striker. But he can have some success on the feet, although he does get hit and can put his lights out. I don't trust He's beaten nothing but bad fighters. So Jafel Filho, round one submission. Somehow getting the fight down to the ground or catching in a weird scramble. Yeah, let's move on to the next part of the card, which is Chelsea Chandler versus Josian Nunes. Chelsea Chandler missed weight, and she looked like she was having a rough time. She missed by 1 pound. Big bastard. But Josian Nunes is a strong lady. If she gets taken down, she's probably going to get put in some bad positions, potentially TKO'd. But I do think that she's going to be strong enough to stuff the takedowns. For the most part, she has shown some good takedown defense against stronger ladies. Maybe not stronger, but bigger ladies. And Chelsea Chandler is a meme just because of that fight against Norma Dumont. But Norma Dumont is a fairly good fighter. So I think this is an interesting one. I do like the wild style from Josian Nunes on the feet. I do feel like she can stuff the takedowns coming her way. And on the feet, I think she's going to land some big shots, make Chelsea Chandler potentially rethink her life. She is maybe on steroids. I mean, probably, right? She's probably on steroids. Big girl, fairly good power for this division. Power is something that not a lot of women's fighters have. And we just saw Chelsea Chandler, what she did when she got hit with the big shot. I think Josian Nunes is going to make this wild. And sometimes wild women MMA fighters are what you need to bet on because there is almost no women's MMA fighters with good striking defense. So I think Chelsea Chandler will get hit with some big shots, lit up on the feet, have some success as well. But I think if she finds takedowns, it's going to be hard to find them. And Josian Nunes maybe can work back up to the feet. If she does get taken down, it might be a rough time. Like her ability to get back up to the feet isn't so great. Maybe it's improved. We'll see, but I do trust her to stop the takedowns, at least a majority of the takedowns. And when it is on the feet, I trust her to make it wild, have success, and land on Chelsea Chandler, who doesn't have the greatest striking defense. So yeah, we'll go Josian Nunes. I'll say a 29-28 decision. Chelsea Chandler will find the takedowns in one of the fights, or maybe not one of the fights, one of the rounds. But 29-28, Josian Nunes, she'll have the bigger moments. Yeah, I think this could be fun if Josian Nunes stuffs the takedowns. For the most part, she is fun, pretty wild. But yeah, I'll go there. Let's move on to the next part of the card. Mike Davis versus Natan Levy. Natan Levy doesn't have the greatest power. He has some grappling as well, but he did miss weight, so that is something to note. But Mike Davis is a good striker. He's put on some good performances, and he has some wrestling. He showcased this against Vyacheslav Borshev, and Borshev had a pretty fun performance against Nazim Sadikov, where he stuffed the majority of the takedowns. And when he did get taken down, he got back up to the feet very well. Mike Davis might not be able to hold down Natan Levy all that well, but ultimately, I think he'll be able to take him down. He should be the better striker, more technical. His win over Mason Jones was pretty impressive. Obviously, Vyacheslav Borshev is a guy that I feel pretty high on. Although he did expose the grappling from Vyacheslav Borshev, he wasn't able to hold him down. So that is something a little bit concerning. But outside of that, Mike Davis, he's a pretty good striker. And although he's not that active, I do trust him here. Minus 500 is kind of one of those where I'm like, shit, I don't know, because Mike Davis sometimes leaves the fight a little bit too close, I feel like. And Natan Levy will go out there looking to land some big shots, looking for high volume. Although Natan Levy is, I want to say, primarily a grappler, he will entertain the striking a lot, and I think Mike Davis will be to stuff takedowns coming his way on the feet. He is the better, more technical striker, fairly solid cardio. I think he's better everywhere, and he'll win this, I'll say, a 30-27 decision, with a couple of the rounds being fairly competitive. I just don't think Natan Levy is that good, and he looked really drained on his weight cut this morning. So Mike Davis, 30-27. Moving on to the next fight of the card, which is Gerald Meerschaert versus Bryan Barberena. I'm picking Gerald Meerschaert. I'm going to say round 2 submission. Bryan Barberena does not have good submission defense, and he got taken down multiple times by Mahmoud Muradov, and Gerald Meerschaert is much better at controlling fighters than Mahmoud Muradov. Muradov is mainly a striker, and obviously he did grapple a little bit, but I think Gerald Meerschaert will be able to find takedowns on the feet. I guess he probably is the better striker, but he does get hit, and Bryan Barberena kind of does have a dangerous style for Gerald Meerschaert, where he'll just go out there throwing a bunch of volume, which could just interrupt Gerald Meerschaert, because Bryan Barberena is kind of unorthodox. He'll throw elbows, just weird, unorthodox timing with everything, but his takedown defense is not good. We saw that very much on display in his last fight against Mahmoud Muradov. He was hurt multiple times, took a lot of damage in that fight. I think Gerald Meerschaert, although it is middleweight versus welterweight, should be able to get this one done. And Gerald Meerschaert did beat Mahmoud Muradov, who did beat Bryan Barberena, so if you're doing MMA math, there you go. There's your prediction. But I think Gerald Meerschaert, better wrestling, better submission game, and should have success on the feet considering he's the more rangy opponent and has had success against some pretty decent opponents on the feet. I mean, Gerald Meerschaert's hard to predict, but this is one of those fights where I am expecting him to win, and if he doesn't win, life does not make sense. But Bryan Barberena is not good. Can't stress that enough. He's not going to be making improvements at this point in his career. He's going to continue to get taken down, and he's going to get held down by Gerald Meerschaert. I'm going to say round 2, submission. Maybe rear naked choke. Gerald Meerschaert gets in the hooks on the back, maybe a body triangle, something like that. Yeah, he's going to find takedowns. If Bryan Barberena wins this, because that's the thing about Gerald Meerschaert. When it's against a lower level of competition, he doesn't look as good as he does against Bruno Silva, Mahmoud Muradov, maybe some of these other fighters that people were saying were pretty high level. But it's Gerald Meerschaert. Who fucking knows? I'm going to say round 3 submission. Round 2 submission. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we got Pannie Kianzad versus Macy Chiasson. Macy Chiasson is the more strong fighter here. She won the first fight. In this fight, I think she should be able to find takedowns. She was taking down Irene Aldana and got that very weird fucking liver kick, up kick, KO. That might have been the first one in UFC history. I don't know entirely. But Pannie Kianzad can win this. She can have success on the feet. I just think that she will get taken down. She was taken down a lot and held in her last performance, I think within the clinch. Macy Chiasson will be controlling it. She's just stronger. I trust her kicks. I mean, this is not a fight that I would tell you to bet on. None of these women's MMA fights are, unless you're betting on the underdog and you feel fairly confident on it. Obviously, there would be value for you there, but not a fight that I would recommend you guys betting on. I do think Macy Chiasson will grind her out in the clinch, find takedowns on the feet, decent kicks. Kianzad should be the better striker, but I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, Pannie Kianzad does have the better cardio, I do believe. So if Pannie wins one of the first 2 rounds, maybe this is one of those scenarios where she is going to win round 3 pretty damn convincingly, or maybe find a finish there. I doubt that's going to be the case. Anything's possible, but I think Macy Chiasson, via finding takedowns, via being stronger in the clinch, will win this fight, and it won't be much fun. Moving on to the next fight of the card, Isaac Dulgarian versus Christian Rodriguez in this matchup. I am taking Isaac Dulgarian. I can understand why people want to go with Christian Rodriguez, but at the same time, I don't want people to be banking on Isaac Dulgarian to have bad cardio for your reason to pick Christian Rodriguez. That doesn't really make that much sense for me. Isaac Dulgarian trains at elevation, and not only does he train at like probably around 5,000 feet elevation, I haven't really looked it up, but outside of that, he mentioned that he runs up in the mountains every single weekend at 10,000 feet elevation, and in his interview, he laughed at people saying that he's going to have bad cardio. Just because he hasn't made it out of the first round doesn't mean he has bad cardio. And I love that he trains at elevation. He's in great shape. I don't think he cuts an insane amount of weight to this division, so that's another plus side on the cardio. And I think he'll be able to take down Christian Rodriguez. Christian Rodriguez is a guy who has just outgrinded people with his cardio. He beat Raul Rosas Jr. and he beat Cameron Simon, and those were 2 up-and-coming prospects. A lot of people were pretty high on them, and for me personally, I was never that high on Raul. especially after seeing on his podcast at the Jackson podcast, I think it was. He was saying that he eats McDonald's all the fucking time. So that's why he fucking gassed out. And he was beating Christian Rodriguez in round 1, had him in a body triangle for like a minute or two, took him down. If Raul Rosas Jr. is getting you down, Isaac Dulgarian with the better wrestling than Raul Rosas Jr., up a weight class, more physically dominant, more physically imposing, will be able to get you down. And when he's mounted on you, when he's on your back, it's a different type of fucking feeling. He's going to be more powerful with his shots, maybe not as good with the submissions, but he's got some good submissions as well. I like Isaac Dulgarian. I think he's got good power. And although Christian Rodriguez can potentially win the later rounds, I'm not going to be banking on the guy that trains at elevation, is in the mountains all the time, as he says, running, mountain biking, whatever it might be. He's a mountain guy, as he says. I'm not going to be trusting on him to have bad cardio. And he seems like a very hungry guy. He lives in a fucking RV, so that's pretty damn cool. I want to break down the Cameron Saaiman performance for Christian Rodriguez as well. Cameron Saaiman, I thought could have won on the feet. I picked him against Christian Rodriguez. I was wrong. I wasn't too surprised seeing Christian Rodriguez missed weight. And like I said, every single time I'm teetering between a pick, the guy that misses weight always seems to be the guy that wins for whatever fucking reason. So that's why I'm going with Danny Silva. Anyways, Cameron Saaiman, I thought could have won by just staying technical, staying at range against Christian Rodriguez, but he was getting clipped with big shots. You know, when he'd have success, boom, he'd get clipped with a big shot, and then he'd get taken down. Wasn't very strong. I just don't think Cameron Saaiman is that good, and I never really thought he was as good as some people were saying he was. I know he's young, and that's why people were saying, oh, he's a good prospect. He's going to be so good when he's older. But I think it's one of those effects which, since they're so young, everyone's going to call them a prospect and overrate how good they are in the exact moment. Cameron Saaiman fights next weekend. I don't know where I'm going with that fight, but I think that Christian Rodriguez has been taking on weak little dum-dums. That's a dumb way to put it. But Isaac Dulgarian's a strong fucking man with good power. Better wrestling than he's probably faced throughout his career. I just don't trust Christian Rodriguez moving up a weight class. When we've seen him get taken down and held down by Jonathan Pierce, and we've seen him get put in bad positions, taken down by Raul Rosas Jr., the McDonald's merchant. And he only had success against Raul after Raul started to gas and couldn't finish him. So that tells me if Isaac has 2 rounds of cardio, he probably beats him here, probably takes him down, puts him in bad positions. And I do feel like with the positions Isaac Dulgarian will have him in round 1, which is mount, maybe just controlling his back, something like that. It's not going to be super cardio needed. What the fuck do I say? How do I say that? It's not going to take up too much of his cardio. It's not going to cause him to work all that much. He might just be really fine controlling Christian Rodriguez from on top. On the feet, Christian Rodriguez is the more technical striker. He doesn't have the same power as Isaac Dulgarian, especially at the featherweight division. And I do feel like Christian Rodriguez might have had a lot of success at the bantamweight division just because of his size difference. He's been missing weight a lot of times down there. So, yeah, I mean, the pick is going to be Isaac Dulgarian. I think this is a prospect that Christian Rodriguez is not going to beat, especially up a weight class. We have seen Christian Rodriguez get taken down and put into some bad positions. He is durable, and as the fight goes later, I do favor him, but I feel like Isaac Dulgarian will be landing some massive elbows. That mount and the power that he has from on top and the danger that he will bring to Christian Rodriguez will lead to Christian Rodriguez getting TKO'd late in round 2. I could see this going to a decision. I could see this being a very close fight. Like I said, I think Christian Rodriguez is the more technical striker, but the power and the physical attributes and the wrestling from Isaac Dulgarian is something that I trust in this matchup. Moving on to the next fight of the card, OSP versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. In this matchup, I'm going with Kennedy Nzechukwu. I'm going to say round 1 KO. OSP made Felipe Lins look like he had devastating power. And sure, Felipe Lins does have some good power and looked pretty decent against Ian Cutelaba last weekend. But Felipe Lins literally has one finish in the UFC, and that is over OSP. Kennedy Nzechukwu actually has some solid power, and I think he finds a finish or a KO in the first round. I'll go by KO. I mean, I kind of would like to see OSP fighting a bum or someone that he could have actually beaten, because this is probably his retirement fight. I imagine it 100% is. But I think he gets knocked out early here. Kennedy Nzechukwu, like I said, has good power, has a good reach. We'll probably knock him out in the first couple of minutes or submit him. If not, I just can't trust OSP. He's old. He's looked really bad lately. Chin ain't there. It's a pretty simple breakdown. Kennedy Nzechukwu, round 1 KO. Kind of want to cheer for OSP a little bit, but I'm not going to just because, I mean, if he wins, what the fuck happens? Actually, I probably will. Why the fuck not? Why not? OSP, we're cheering for him, but he's going to get knocked out or submitted in the first round. Moving on to the next fight of the card, we got Ange versus Bryan battle. I have not been looking forward to predicting this one. I don't know where I'm going to go. No, I'm going to go with Bryan battle. Fuck it. I want to go with Ange, but I feel like it's because I'm being a little bit too underdog horny. I want to pick an underdog here, and I feel like Ange can find the takedowns, but he's not been great at controlling people outside of AJ Fletcher, and that fight was at elevation, and you know how that goes. When fuckers are gassed, they're not getting back up to the feet, and Ange hasn't really finished anyone in the UFC yet. You should be finishing Rhys McKee if I'm going to be trusting you to finish Bryan Battle. And I don't think Bryan Battle is that good. I really don't. I think a lot of people think he's super good, and I'll stay on the side that he is a fraud. I rewatched the AJ Fletcher performance this morning, and on the feet, I don't know what the fuck he was doing. He was using a very weird stance. He's not as active and as busy as I would like him to be, which is why I could see Ange landing a big shot, but I'm not sure Ange has insanely devastating power. Sure, he can hurt guys, but he's not putting them away. On the regional scene, he has a lot of decision wins as well, close decision wins. I think if Ange is landing the takedowns, he'll probably win this fight, but at the same time, I could see Bryan Battle finding a submission. Bryan Battle probably has the cardio advantage, although Ange doesn't gas massively. I don't think he has the greatest 3 rounds of cardio. And sure, round 3 in Salt Lake City looked very, very sloppy because it was in Salt Lake City. So I'll give him slack there, but against Rhys McKee, he didn't look extremely fresh in round 3, got hurt at the end of the round, and I don't think Rhys McKee is good. I think he's dog shit. I probably already said that, but I don't know. Mounir Lazzez is a rangy guy, and I think on the feet he has a better style to beat Ange than Bryan Battle because he's in and he's out. He's got a good jab, he's got a straight right, and then he's out. And he lands some nice low kicks. I think the low kicks will work for Bryan Battle here. He's fought against Tresean Gore, who has a fairly similar build, and he stayed away from the power of Tresean Gore pretty damn well. And when it came down to it, I kind of trust him here to stay away from the power of Ange. He worked in a takedown of his own against AJ Fletcher, and I don't think AJ Fletcher is that good. And they both share wins over AJ Fletcher. Ange and Bryan were actually both hurt by AJ Fletcher. And that's what worries me about Bryan Battle is I feel like he's so stiff on the feet. And sure, he knocked out Gabe Green in the first round, but even in the pocket, he just looks uncomfortable. He looks weird to me. I don't believe in him in a prospect. He has beaten nothing but fucking cans. Sure, he knocked out Takashi Sato in the first round. That's Takashi motherfucking Sato. Outside of that, who was his most recent win against? AJ Fletcher. Gilbert Urbina sucks. Tresean Gore sucks. There's another win that I'm probably not thinking about right now, but he lost to Renat Fakhretdinov, who is actually a fairly solid fighter. But I do think that Bryan Battle will be making improvements in his takedown offense, and if this is on the feet, I kind of trust his range to give him problems because we've seen the range from Rhys McKee and the range from Mounir Lazzez give him problems. More from Mounir Lazzez, but I do think, like I said, Mounir Lazzez is very good at getting in and out, working the low kicks, working in body kicks. Higher volume guy for the most part. I mean, maybe not entirely because Bryan Battle does have some high volume at times, but Mounir Lazzez brought a very kind of fun but interesting fight and brought problems to Ange just by being more active, getting in, getting out, respecting the power, staying at range, landing fucking teeps a little bit. I think the teeps from Bryan Battle will work here, and I think the low kicks will work here, but if he goes out there in that really stiff stance like he did against AJ Fletcher, he can end up getting caught, and I won't be surprised one fucking bit. I'm going to say a very close 29-28 decision. I just feel like Bryan Battle can get back up to his feet, as Ange hasn't been great at holding down people outside of AJ Fletcher when he was gassed. And Rhys McKee fucking sucks. He's just not good. His takedown offense isn't good, and he wasn't able to hold down Rhys McKee that well. Getting hurt by Rhys McKee in the third round isn't something that I like to see. I think the range from Bryan Battle will give him issues. If Bryan Battle is smart, works the teeps to the body, rips the 1-2 down the pipe, and gets in and out, he will win this fight. I just haven't seen him get in and out all that time, and I do feel like in the pocket when he trades, he's very concerning. But then again, when Ange lands in the pocket against Fletcher, when he lands in the pocket against Rhys McKee and other fighters, he's not knocking them out. And I feel like Bryan Battle can potentially recover. He recovered pretty well against AJ Fletcher. So I'm going to go with Bryan Battle here. He's got the better submission game. He can get taken down. He's got the worst wrestling. So Ange has the wrestling. Bryan Battle has the submission game on the feet. It's interesting. It really is interesting. But I'm going to go with Bryan Battle. I think he's just so long. He works the teeps pretty well, and I think the low kicks have always been there against an opponent like Ange. So we're going to go Bryan Battle, 29-28 decision. Some takedowns will be landed, but Bryan will get back up to the feet, maybe find some submissions of his own. And he actually has some decent scrambles. I could see him scrambling on the top position against Ange. So I'll go with Bryan Battle here. Very, very low confidence, and I want to go with Ange, but I'm going to go against my feeling and the heart. I'm going to go with the brain. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura in this matchup. I want to go with Tybura. No, I don't. I want to go with Tai Tuivasa, and I'm going to go with Tai Tuivasa. He's got good low kicks. He's strong. He's fat, but he's strong. And when he's gotten taken down in the past, most recently, he's gotten back up to the feet pretty damn well. look at the Derek Lewis fight, and I know he got taken down by Derek fucking Lewis, so that is a very tough thing to get by when you're predicting Tai Tuivasa to win. And you would put money on him, and I think he was injured very recently. I don't know where, was it his meniscus or some fucking weird thing in his knee or something like that? He had to get surgery, but he said in interviews that he's been healthy. He could have fought at UFC 298, and that he went to UFC 299, or actually he went to this point, the week after UFC 299, just to be sure. So I do feel like he's healthy. I'm predicting Tai Tuivasa to be healthy, and if he's not, I mean, there's a built-in excuse for me there. But outside of that, I mean, he's got good low kicks. He's the more athletic fighter. He's clearly got good power. And Marcin Tybura just is not athletic, and he'll trade before he's looking to find takedowns. And I think he'll get caught. He's coming off a knockout loss against Tom Aspinall. I know Tai Tuivasa just got beaten 3 times in a row by knockout, but Volkov, Pavlovich, and Gane are all very solid fighters, very solid strikers. And Tai Tuivasa is not exactly the guy that's going to use grappling to win fights. But what I was saying is when he got taken down by Derek Lewis, he got back up to the feet very well. He tends to use the cage pretty well when getting back up to the feet, and we're in the UFC Apex in a smaller octagon. And typically, the smaller octagon favors guys with more knockout power, and Tai Tuivasa has all the knockout power in this matchup. The low kicks will be there. I think he's going to be athletic enough to get back up when he is taken down. I think Marcin Tybura will get him down at some point because he has pretty decent trips. And, I mean, his takedown entries aren't good. Volkov stuffed all 15 takedowns from him. So that is something interesting to note. But I feel like Tai Tuivasa can maybe outright stuff, like maybe the double legs coming his way. The trips have always been a massive problem for him against Sergey Spivak. Sergey tripped him almost every single time he wanted to, and Tai toppled over. It's these fat guys that really struggle with trips. But I think that Marcin Tybura is not going to be strong enough to hold down Tai Tuivasa. Tai will get back up to the feet. And within the clinch against Derek Lewis, he was landing great elbows. And eventually, he landed that clinch elbow, which knocked out Derek Lewis. I think Tai's good within the clinch. And when Marcin fails takedowns, and sometimes he likes to hang out in the clinch, he'll get caught. And I think Tai Tuivasa has the power, the athleticism, to keep this on the feet for long enough or do enough damage within the clinch to knock out Marcin Tybura. I'm going to say round 1 KO. I think he'll get taken down early, scramble back up to the feet, and then on the break, he'll land a big shot. They'll clinch up for a second, land maybe an elbow, and then off the break, he'll probably knock him out there. Round 1 KO. Outside of that, I could really see Marcin Tybura winning this, especially if Tai Tuivasa is injured. I'm betting on a healthy Tai Tuivasa. But fuck, I mean, I feel like that might be a dumb thing to do. Seeing, if you watch the YouTube video, if you've seen it on Twitter, he looked very hurt, and I don't know how serious the injury is. But I'm betting on a healthy Tai, and I think a healthy Tai wins this. Against Sergey Spivak, he got taken down 6 times, but he got up multiple times very well. And Sergey Spivak is a guy that submitted Derek Lewis. He submitted Tai Tuivasa as well, but Tai began to gas out because Sergey was pushing a pretty good pace on him. And Sergey does have decent cardio, but Sergey took him down like 4 times in the first round. He got up every single time. So that is a good thing to see. Round 2, he got taken down, got back up, and then got taken down again and submitted, unfortunately. So the submission could be here for the black belt, Marcin Tybura, but I think Tai will be strong enough to get back up to the feet and land something big in round 1. The leg kicks will be there all day. Although he looks fat, although he's been knocked out 3 times in a row, I think he can get back in the win column. And I really just don't trust Marcin Tybura's fatness and just being slow, and he does get hit. So for that reason, I'm going with the power puncher, Tai Tuivasa, round 1 KO. That's going to conclude this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know if there's anything you disagree with or anything you feel like I forgot to mention. Not the most fun card, but there could be some fun performances. Maybe there is some value on this card. We'll see how it goes. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.